and I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Hey, Coos County. Hello, Oregon. Hello, America and beyond. I want to thank you all for joining me on today's show. I first off want to apologize for not having the Friday night show, which I happily title the Friday Night Rant. And even though it is part of the Rob Taylor Report, there are some times when I don't get a chance to do that. So I apologize to all those of you who are avid fans of the Friday Night Rant. It's it's a little bit of a different show. We do a little bit of drinking. We might do a little bit of smoking, and we do a lot of cussing. And we do a lot more of ranting. So I'll be doing that again on Friday, this Friday night. We'll be doing a lot more ranting, and I hope you can join us. And remember, when Marty's drinking, you got to match him beer per beer. So it's a pretty good show. So I hope you join us. But for the Monday show, I like to, sobriety is the name of the game, abstinence. You know what I mean? If you really want to have a good time, you got to abstain once in a while so you can get a grasp of reality of what's going on. And that's why I like to have a more serious Monday show and talk to guests and different people who are professional in the issue that they're talking about. And I've got a lot of things to cover, and we will cover it a little bit later in the show. I got to tell you what happened to the DEI loyalty oath that they were trying to pass in North Bend. Well, I got good news for you. So stick around. We'll be talking about that. And I don't know if you know what time it is. It's time for the Republican Party reorganization meeting. They're having elections happening this Thursday. I think we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about that. But we're going to be talking about all of that a little bit later on, because right now I want to talk about the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. Have you heard of the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly? Not to be confused with the Oregon General Jural Assembly. There are two different groups from what I understand. I didn't even know that until I booked my guest for this show. So we're going to find out a little bit about him and why he's doing this statewide jural assembly. And it has to do with the Oregon Constitution. The Oregon is unique the way it is written. And if you've ever written the Oregon Constitution, I mean, go get a copy of it. It's like a book. I mean, the thing is huge, and but it's not that hard of reading. It's pretty well understood. And so I'm going to bring on my first guest, who is part of the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, and his name is Ron Vrooman. Ron, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for calling, and thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Anytime. Anytime. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember meeting me in Salem after an event? I was a speaker at the event, and you came up to me afterwards to talk with me about the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly.
No, I don't recall that.
That's okay. You meet so many people at those things, but yeah, we had a discussion on this, and at the time I wasn't sure exactly. I've never heard of it, and so I've done a little investigating on it. I found out a little bit more about what your group is doing and what you're trying to do. So why don't you tell us, who are you and why you want to do this statewide jural assembly?
Okay. I would like to start with this, wherever that goes. This is on the back of all of our presentation cards because this is who we are. Oh, you got it right there on the screen. We declare that all men, when they form a social compact, are equal in right, that all power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness, and they have at all times a right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper. We did that in 2018.
Okay. And I saw that there was a process in your about page. You talk about the process. What exactly is it that you're trying to do with the statewide Jural Assembly?
Return Oregon to a constitutional Republican form of government. Article 4, Section 4 is guaranteed in the Constitution. We don't have that. We lost that years ago. We lost it November 8th, 1910, when they placed Article 7 amended into the Oregon Constitution improperly. It did not have the votes. It was not done. It was illegal and illegitimate, making it de facto. But the judiciary agreed among themselves that this is how they wanted to run the judiciary on Oregon, not as the Constitution said under original, but as they wanted to do it. So they all got together and agreed to do it that way, and they had two courts to start with. People that wanted to go into the county court original could go into that court. But after a period of time, things morphed into, when you go to the county courthouse, you go into a state court. In fact, I have a case right here, so that you see that I'm not just talking bullshit. The Circuit Court of the state of Oregon for the county of Marion. That's not the Marion County Court. That's something else. And when you look at the Constitution, you find out there's two Amendment 7s, and then things start to unravel.
So let me ask you this. This has been one of my problems that I've had with our courts here in Coos County, and it's exactly what you're saying. It's not a county court anymore. It's a circuit court. So you're saying they replaced the original Seventh Amendment with another Seventh Amendment that got rid of our county courts?
Yes.
And they were able to do this legally?
No.
Okay.
It's been color law and fraud, brought to you by the British Accreditation Registry, laughingly referred to as bar attorneys.
Yep.
And they're the ones that did it, and they're the ones that agreed to it. And on November 2022, Charlie wrote the paper, and the Oregon judiciary acquiesced and defaulted to they had no honor and they cannot hold a position of trust.
Now, do you have representatives from every county in Oregon helping you out with this process? Because from what I understood, I thought you were supposed to get representatives from each county. Is that part of this process?
That's a lie.
Okay.
When you look at this, Article 1, Section 1, it says, we declare that all men, when they form a social compact, those folks in the other assembly did not go to the trouble to form a social compact. They talk about it, and they write up pieces of paper, and they go around and do stuff. But it says Oregon. It does not say counties. And then when you look at the dates that the counties were made, when we became a state, there was like 17 counties.
Right. Right.
So,
And
so
now
the
there are
number of
36.
so the number of counties does not qualify the state. The state qualifies the county. That's why we're a statewide jural assembly.
Okay. All right. And that would make a little bit more sense. And that's some of the confusion I was getting, because a lot of this, Ron, I'll be honest with you, I've read some of the arguments going back and forth in your groups and stuff, and a lot of it just flies right over my head. You know what I mean? And I'm a pretty well read person, and sometimes I look at it and go, I'm not sure what the hell either of these people are talking about. And that's kind of why I wanted you to come on here. But what would be what's the eventual goal? Is to get the courts back to the county level, or what would be the goal?
Okay. The goal is to return to a constitutional Republican form of government. What we have now is color of law. It's play pretend. That's why things don't work right, because they don't have to work right. The court system, as we have it, is a for-profit business. It's not government. They're in business to fine you so that they can make money. But then when you read the Oregon Revised Statutes, it gives all of the information on the things that they have to do to occupy that office. And they don't do them. And nobody holds their feet to the fire. We have 36 sheriffs, and we have been dealing with those 36 sheriffs since 2017. They have all been notified of two things. Article 7 amended is what you took an oath to, and it's bogus. You cannot take a valid oath to an invalid object. That is not law. That's color of law. And color of law is fraud. That's what you're doing. We told them that in 2017. To prove it, we said every single one of you sells a concealed carry permit. That is a violation of the Second Amendment. Every one of you are breaking your oath, and you have an improper oath. That's misprision of felony. When you know you're doing a felony or somebody's doing a felony and you let it go and you're not supposed to, and we notified that 2017, here it is, 2024, and not one sheriff has a proper oath. So our court of record met on the sidewalk in front of the courthouse October 21st, and we had a trial, an Article 3, Amendment 7 trial. We did our job. We didn't talk about it. We did it. We had a grand jury that came together and found a true bill. And from the true bill, we called a court, and we got an Amendment 7 court. They showed up right on the steps of the county courthouse, and we tried all 36 sheriffs. And they were found to not have a lawful oath, and they have no right to sit in the office of sheriff. And then in the last 2 weeks, we've gone around to 9 of the sheriffs and informed them to them. We served the paper on the office, and we have proof of service. And we do it with our court. A court is 3 tribunals and a clerk. And we took a marshal with us.
You actually got a marshal to go with you.
Well, of course.
This is a badge carrying U.S. Marshal actually joined you with.
No, he's an Oregon Marshal, not a U.S. Marshal. And
Okay.
yes, he has a badge. And actually, we had a deputy marshal with us. Our marshal wasn't with us, it was a deputy.
Okay.
Tom was the deputy with us on that day. And we served 3 on that day, making it a total of 9 that have been served so far. And then when we serve it on the public bulletin board, we put a proper oath of what a proper oath should be. We're not telling them exactly, but a proper oath is defined. The Marines started taking a proper oath in 1775. It's been altered a little bit, but it's still basically the same. And you don't just support the Constitution. If you're carrying a gun like a sheriff or his deputy, you don't just support it, you defend it. It's a
And
more
that's what I found. And that's what we have found all throughout law enforcement in the last couple of years, is that they are supporting what I would say are unconstitutional laws. And I love the fact that you gave the example of the Second Amendment being violated by our state carry permits. I shouldn't have to get a permit when it already says in the Constitution, my right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And you are
exactly.
absolutely right. So now what, after you've served these sheriffs, let me ask you, was Coos County happen to be the sheriff of Coos County? Was he one of the people on the list, or was it some other sheriffs?
I have a small aside on Coos. I email the sheriffs and a bunch of deputies quite frequently.
Okay.
And many of them know my name, and lots of them know my face. And when I walk in, they know who they're talking to. And there's probably 6 or 10 or maybe more of our court. When they walk in, the same thing happens. We're not unknown to these people. They do not like us. I have something that I'd like to share with you.
Sure.
When we were meeting on the plaza in Salem, where I think you and I may have talked, there was gun rallies and all kinds of rallies going there. They locked us out when they held legislature, and we were there. And I talked to the people that are in the militia, and they say, Ron, if they find that we're in the militia, they want to declare us to be terrorists. And then they arrest us, they put us in jail. Then to get out of jail, we have to agree to do all of these things. Then they put us out of jail on a word won't come, it's not parole, but they let them out of jail, and they're under conditions. Then they drop the charges of terrorists, but they're still on probation. There's the word. They're still on probation. If they break probation, now there's the count that they go to jail on. So the
Right.
guy explained that to me. So I said, okay. So we talked to our court, and our court formed the Oregon Second Amendment well-regulated militia. And we went through all the steps to do that. And in fact, if you look on the signage for our tents when we held the trial in Salem, it's advertising that we are the Second Amendment well-regulated militia. Come with me and I'll sign you up. So we are dealing with FBI, the Marshals, the Marine Corps, and have been trying to deal with the Oregon National Guard. So our court went to the Oregon National Guard's headquarters building out by the airport in Salem the other day, and we were looking for a guy named Rocky Kumlin, Lieutenant Colonel from the Oregon National Guard and their provost marshal. Okay? So we walked in, and he was gracious enough to talk to us, and there was 5 of us. And we had a good long conversation, big wide hall, nobody around. It was Thursday afternoon late. Only his number 2 was there. But on his card, I want to read what's on his card. Rocky Kumlin, Provost Marshal, Branch Chief, Anti-Terrorism Force Protection. Now, why in the hell does Oregon need the National Guard to have anti-terrorism force protection? And the guys that should be by Constitution, age 18 to 45 are supposed to be in the militia. But if they get into the militia, His number 2 addresses himself as a Mr. Scott Peel, and he's a deputy provost marshal, and he's a state anti-terrorism program manager. Now, I'd like you to look at the card, the presentation card here. Can you see it?
Pull it back to there. You go. Right there. Hold it still. Yes, I can.
Okay. Do you see the 7-pointed star?
Yes, I do.
7-pointed stars go to sheriffs. And he's got the Oregon seal on it. So these guys are for real, but they represent the de facto state of Oregon, all caps state of Oregon.
Right.
They're
Which is the
all
corporation.
yes, for profit. That's not government.
Right.
I got a call. No, that's not true. I got an email and I called him. And he's an Oregon man, and he said that he had been appointed the interim governor of Oregon. Wow. Who has the authority to appoint you the interim governor on Oregon? Well, the Republic of the United States. That group went belly up in 2010 when they put their leader in jail. They put him in prison. That failed. They're still trying to make it work. Just like the people that want to say you have to organize or settle all the counties before you can have a state. Oh, come on. The state was here long before, and the counties have no mention anywhere in any document, just like democracy has no mention anywhere in any document. It's a republic, but you can't have it unless you take it. You have to reach out with it and you have to take it. Everybody has to do that. Nobody can do it for you, Rob. I cannot say Rob's free. You got to do that. But
Right.
then you have to stand up in your own name without an anonymous handle every single time and declare who you are. And every time we have gone up against the feds, the county, the cities, the state, every time we go up against them, they fold. There's nothing there. It's all play pretend. They refuse to see us, refuse to talk to us. Our court one day met in the grand jury meeting downtown Portland. And after the grand jury meeting was over, our court was 8, way more than we needed, but 8 of us went across to the Marco Hatfield building, 1000 Southwest 3rd, which is an illegitimate and illegal structure. It's bogus. When you pull the title and you look at the title is not to a legitimate entity. It's to the color of law corporation that they're running. And I pulled all the documents years ago before they were hip to all this stuff from their GSA attorney, and he gave me all, no problem, it was a female. She gave me all, emailed it, all kinds of, and there's the proof. The 6 lots under that building still belong to the people that owned them. But there was a taking, a federal taking, eminent domain, and they paid them, but they never recorded the changing of the title. It's all bogus. So we filed that paper with the court over there, the U.S. Marshals there, and when we filed with the U.S. Marshals telling them that this was quiet title and we were going to the word won't when you're going to throw somebody out because they're not paying the rent, they're an illegal evict. Yes, we were going to evict them and file quiet title, and their response after taking the paper was to push us out of the building. 8 of us. They had 2 large-sized men that accepted title, pushed 8 of us out of the building. They have no courage. There's nothing there. It's all phony.
Well, let me ask you this, because David Zargaza is asking a question on YouTube, and he was the young man that you saw that was on the show last time, and he's got a question about the county sheriff and the county itself. He says, "Why is the county sheriff the highest law enforcement agent if each county is not an independent nation state?"
Each county is not an independent nation state. Each county is a county, and each county gets its charter from the state. We haven't had a state on Oregon since November 8th, 1910. We've had color of law state of Oregon, aka all caps state of Oregon. It's a bogus de facto color of law business. It's no longer government.
Now, was that done by the state itself, or was that a U.S. federal move?
Okay, it's good. There was a guy named Frank Benson. He was a carpetbagger out of California. He came to Oregon and he ran for and was elected to be Secretary of State of Oregon. He served his term and they reelected him. And as soon after they reelected him, the governor resigned, just like when Kate Brown took over. Remember, the governor resigned? Well, the governor resigned, and Frank Benson, Secretary of State, took the office of governor and did not relinquish the office of Secretary of State. Can't
Oh,
do
you
that.
can't do that. You can't do
But
that.
he did it. But he did it. And then he implemented Article 7 amended into the Constitution that sets up the current judiciary. Supreme Court, appellate court, and bar attorneys have to run the whole show. That's what they set up. And then after he did that, then he resigned, went back to California, and was dead within a year. I read the histories on it. Then there's another
okay.
guy named.
Before you go any further, I got a question there with that process that you just talked about, how he put in Article 7. From what I understand, the legislature has to pass that Article 7, and I thought, this could have been changed since then. Now it has to go to the voters for the voters to approve any amending of the Constitution. Was that the case at that time, or did the legislators approve it and then that governor, who shouldn't have been governor because he was still Secretary of State, approved it?
You're right, nailing the head. Yeah. A guy named Milt Mitchek back in the 90s got in his car and he drove around to each one of the counties and went to each one of the election secretaries or recorders and said, "I'd like the proof of Article 7 amended the vote for November 8th, 1910. And they did not have it.
Oh, wow.
And he did that to all 36 counties. And he wrote a little book, and it's on our website. It's called Vultures. And he wrote it. And he was well on his way to doing great work. And then 9/11 happened. And the whole thing blew up, and he could get no more traction. Remember a guy named Lon Maybaum?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. We're standing on the shoulders of people that have come before, but they didn't make it. They knew a lot, they got a lot done, and they didn't make it. There's a group that started a political party called the Constitution Party. They didn't make it either. But none of them did Article 1, Section 1.
Right.
We just read the prompts. That's all there was to it. The First Amendment of the United States of America's Constitution, that's another thing. Some of these people say Constitution for the United States or Constitution of the United States. We speak English. In English, when you own something, you get an apostrophe S, and that's what shows ownership. This is Rob's show, apostrophe S. This is not the show for Rob or not the show of Rob. This is Rob's show, apostrophe S. The United States of America's apostrophe S Constitution, circa 1859. The Constitution was made to be changed and corrected. The ink wasn't even dry, and they were already working on the first 10 amendments to it. That was the deal they made to pass the first part, was that they would do the second part. And then from there on, they did all the parts that they had to do, sometimes better than others. But until Buchanan was president in 1859 and 1860, when Oregon became the last state, we had original jurisdiction. We had what was one constitution. It was the Constitution of 1859 when Oregon became the last state. When you change the contract by adding or changing an amendment, that's a change in the contract. When you add a new state, that's another change in the contract. So every time you do one of those, you have to make the change in the contract. And there's two contracts. There's one in Washington District of Columbia that the United States of America owns. And then there's another one on Oregon that me and you, own. That's our contract.
Now, let me ask you.
That contract is hidden.
It's hidden.
Yeah, you go to the state. We've gone several times. You go to the state archives and you say, "Hi, I'd like to see the original statehood document. You know, the one they wrote about in the two great big books, the histories of Oregon, that document. I'd like to see it." Well, we can't just show it to everybody or anybody, no. So then I went and got a court, and 4 of us went back, and they still wouldn't show it. I'm on first name basis with the Deputy Secretary of State and the archivist, and they will not show it. We went back there just, 2-3 years ago with the full court, and they would not let us in. They will not show the document. They have no honor. They can't. If they show it, they prove that they're bogus.
Oh, wow. I didn't know this. I didn't know that they could even do this.
I didn't know it. If you can change the Oregon Constitution and change the judiciary and make it stick for 114 years, you're pretty damn good at what you do.
You're pretty damn good at what you do. But here's the kind of the interesting thing that I find about Section 1, text of the Section 1. And I, to be quite honest with you, I really like Oregon Constitution. I mean, there were some really good things. The Second Amendment, equivalent of the Second Amendment in the Oregon Constitution, is great. But what I really like that I don't understand about this, or I have a question about, is this was pre-Civil War, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so pre-Civil War, there is no way they would have been able to do this after the Civil War, because wasn't the fact that the Civil War was fought over succession of the southern states, didn't that kind of prove this section, text of Section 1, false, because they wouldn't allow the Southerners to get out of the original contract of the U.S. Constitution?
Yes, you're absolutely right. This is what it takes. People want to say what it takes to make the United States the United States again. Okay, here it is. There are 33 states and there are 17 territories, and 2 territories Hawaii and Alaska are questionable, but they're territories now. So then the 33 states only need a quorum. That's 20. So we only need 20 states if it includes South Carolina. If South Carolina meets in a Congress assembled from the social compact of Article 1, Section 1 from their state, in Congress assembled with 20 others, we have formed the United States of America again properly in de jure. We do not need to go around and do all of the other stuff. That's silly talk. We don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. They have built up a bureaucracy that is so deep and so wide that they can function and make the state of Oregon operate just fine without any senators, without any House of Representatives, without any judges, and without any governor. We do not need any of those things. The people that are running the government and the states and the cities now are still going to run them. Then you say, how do you make this legit again? You make it legit again by you register the voters properly. It's all written out how to do it. And then you vote on a paper ballot, and it's counted by a man and a woman, or man or woman, from 2 or 3 different jurisdictions that all agree that that paper ballot is correct. And that's how you make a vote to elect. And we elect all the people that have to be elected from people that have honor, not these people like Kate Brown that orders the murder of Robert Lavoy Finicum on the highways on Oregon. We don't have to put up with that crap anymore, because all it takes for the change is the sheriff say, yep, I'll take a proper oath to the proper Constitution and I'll do my job. That's all he's got to do, or she.
Now, when you
And
say
then
proper,
it's all written down how to do it and what.
but when you talk about the districts, you know, the different, you know, the man and woman from the different districts, then doesn't that really go back to the precincts, the county, and then that are in the state? So it does give relevance to the fact that the county has to play some position, right?
Well, it's all written out. The Secretary of State's office makes a decision on how counties and everybody else is going to do an election. That's all written out. We don't have to change that. And currently it says that the counties will do it. They have an election manager or clerk there. They've been doing it. They know all the rules. They know how to do it. They'll continue to do it. County numbers change. We could have a new county next year. County numbers change.
Yeah, county numbers do change, right?
And whoever the clerk of the county is, that's the elections clerk for the county, that changes too. But the thing that doesn't change is the requirements. You got to be an Oregonian, you got to be old enough, you got to be smart enough, and you have to do it yourself. And you have to have identification to prove that you are who you say you are while you're doing it. And all of that has been done away with by the Democratic Party over the last 35 years. We get all of these things that creep in and people let it go. And then every once in a while, the senators on the Republican side get enough and they leave for a while. But 89 of them sat in their legislative assembly while we were locked out January 21st, 2021. And a guy named Mike Neerman opened the door and let us in. And then they pepper sprayed us and hit us with sticks and arrested people. for letting us into our own house.
Right.
So,
Right.
so those 89 people that were in the legislature at that time broke their oath. Article 4, Section 14 of the Constitution, they swore an oath to, says, you guys don't get to sit in legislature unless we're sitting in the audience. And they did. So we tried all 89 of them, found them guilty, and they cannot hold a position of trust. But they don't want to give it up.
No.
They
And
want,
how can you make them though? This is my whole thing. We can
you
go
look
through
'em-
this, but how do we
look-
make them?
look them right in the eye. That's how you make them. The sheriff, you look at the sheriff in the eye. They're cowards. They won't see us. Every once in a while, one will. But you look them right in the eye. Will you take a proper oath or you not take a proper oath? You know what it is. We've told you. And a proper oath must contain the laws of nature and nature's God. That's from 1776. That's who we are. And you don't get to do something else. So now the sheriff says, no, I'm not going to take a proper oath. How long do you think that's going to last?
Well, so far it's lasted quite a while. That's the
No,
problem, isn't it?
nobody's been down there raising hell. Nobody held a grand jury. Nobody held a trial. Nobody found him guilty. Nobody delivered the goods to their door. You are guilty. You have no honor unless you have an oath. Nobody's ever done that before last week.
Last week. And so now what happens? Because you've said you presented them. You did you send them a letter? How did you notify them that they were found guilty of violating not taking the correct oath?
In person, in the flesh, with 4 people in a court and a marshal.
Okay.
9 of them. Multnomah County, Clackamas County, Yamhill County, and Washington County, Jackson County, Jefferson County, Marion County, Lane County, and Lynn County. Only one sheriff was brave enough to come out and talk to us. One.
Which
Out
one?
of 9. I wasn't there. It was either Jackson or Jefferson County.
That would make sense. That would
Down
make sense.
south.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he came out and talked to him, and he had a good conversation. The only thing was he lied during the conversation. And the guy standing there that's one of our marshals says to him, you know that's not true, and I have the proof. And he proved it to him. They don't want to let go. Who wants to let go of everything that they've held dear their whole life, or however long they've been a cop, and then they find out, oh, we're not the cash cow. You don't get to just stop us and hit us with a stick and fine us. Oh, right. You mean we have unalienable rights and we're going to enforce them? And you don't enforce unalienable rights by adhering to silly rules that somebody else has made up. Have you ever read the part in the Constitution that says how they elect a president? It's called the Electoral College.
Yes. And which was very controversial even for the founding fathers.
But it was great. It's absolutely excellent. They wrote it up so that you could not get 2 guys from the same state to run a game on you. And you were supposed to be able to elect from the public at large.
Right.
And that's changed. But anyhow,
yes, it has.
When
that's a huge problem.
When you go read what the Electoral College is, and you just read it, what it says is the legislature, we do not have a legislator on Oregon. We have Article 1, Section 1, a provisional government. What do you do when you're changing from a de facto illegal government to a de jure legal government? You have Article 1, Section 1, a social compact that does the work to provide what's necessary to become what we're supposed to be. And it's not hard. It's a little difficult, it's time consuming. It's absolutely rewarding. It's killer work.
Yeah. Yeah, it is killer work because obviously you've been putting a lot of time into this, Ron.
Oh, I'm just one of many. I'm just the old white man talking head.
So let me ask
There's
you, how many people are in your group, would you say, totally statewide?
Okay, I'm going to answer that this way. Our initial effort was to get 45 people into our grand jury pool so that we had a large enough grand jury pool that when Tanya said we're calling a grand jury, that a grand jury would actually show up. The minute we got 45, we called our first grand jury. We've had 9 grand juries since then, 8 grand juries since then, and we have several hundred people in our jury pool. I'm not going to get any closer than that.
Okay. Okay. Let me ask you this question because someone had wanted me to ask you this question. And like I said, this is a lot of this is new to me. They said that there were people in your group that went to jail because they were state nationalists, declared they were leaving, they were getting rid of their U.S. citizenship, and that there were actually some of them who went and voted and went to jail. I have no idea. This is hearsay that I heard from somebody else. Tell me your thoughts on that, or what is the story there?
Okay, there's a lot of controversy on that, but there's a book called Bouvier Law Dictionary 1856. That's a very important book because Congress said, after people said to them for a lot of years, you guys don't have a definition of what the hell you're talking about. So Congress had a dictionary written that defines all of our documents, all of our legal documents, exactly what the words mean. And it's in Bouvier Law Dictionary 1856. So they had the dictionary when Oregon became a state. So we do know that we are sovereign men and women. That's what the identification is in the dictionary. When you look under sovereign, the only place in the world and the only dictionary that it exists is here in the United States of America, sovereign men and women. Okay, so if you're sovereign, you can expatriate to any jurisdiction you want. I
Right.
expatriated and joined the Navy in 1956. I gave up my rights, my unalienable rights. I gave them up to be a sailor and to have the Universal Code of Military Justice while I was enlisted. And that's the way it goes. When I was through being enlisted, then I returned to my sovereign being. Then I can become a U.S. citizen and fill out their IRS form and pay taxes. Or I cannot do that. I do not have to expatriate from Ron Vrooman on the land and soil of Oregon, a sovereign being with no ruler and no subjects. I can expatriate to that and be a U.S. citizen and pay income tax. I can do that. I can expatriate and become an Oregon citizen and pay Oregon tax. And I can expatriate and go to Washington and do that if I wish. In fact, I can expatriate and leave the country altogether and go to another land because I am a sovereign being. People from Canada and people from England and Australia Can't do that. They're still subjects. They're one revolution short of getting enough skin in the game.
Right. Good point. Good point.
So we are not state nationals unless you want to be. If you want to be, go ahead. Join up and be in the Oregon whatever department. Be an Oregon State policeman. You can join up and be a sheriff or a cop, or you can be a street cleaner or a building inspector. You can expatriate and take the coin of the de facto government. That's your choice. But some people say that you have to repudiate your U.S. citizenship. Repudiate is such an ugly word, and it's stupid. You do not want to, you can expatriate from it. I did it. I expatriated into the United States Navy and then out again as soon as my contract was over. And every time I want to vote in Washington County, I go down and register to vote. And I become a U.S. citizen long enough to vote because it's required. It's de facto. De facto is there. It's there. It's illegitimate, but you can't say it's not there. It governs everything we do.
Right.
But I don't have to be in that jurisdiction. This is a funny one. Pat Garrett did something pissed me off. I forget what it was. He's a former sheriff of Washington County. Down and changed my jurisdiction and my citizenship from that of an Oregonian, and I registered to vote in the off season because the only way you can take out the paperwork to recall your sheriff is if you're a registered voter. So I went down and registered to vote and filed all the paperwork through the county and the State Department. And I got my documentation to notify Pat Garrett that I was doing a recall on him. And I did all the paperwork. When it was all done and all the paperwork was finished except for 35,000 signatures, I stopped. Then I expatriated from Oregon back to being a man on the land. But Pat Garrett knew. He got all the paperwork. He understood perfectly well. So we do the work. Whatever the work is, we do it. Tomorrow, we're going to go to court in Salem. A guy named, I won't say his name.
Okay.
He was stopped and harassed, and they took his car and towed it and put him in jail over the holiday, kept him in jail for 4 days under one name, and then released him under another name. No wonder we couldn't find him for 4 days because they were holding him under a wrong. No, we don't have Mr. Jones here. Hell no, he was under Mr. Brown. So he's out and he has to go back to court, and we're going to court with him because they have no jurisdiction. Now, if one man stands up to the judge and says, "You don't have any jurisdiction over me," one of the bailiffs will knock him in the head if they want and drag his ass off to jail. And what's the charge? Well, the charge is whatever the judge says. Contempt. How's that? 30 days contempt. They can do it. Okay. Yep. They can only do that if you acquiesce and agree. You don't acquiesce and you don't agree, they can't do it. And we're going to test it in Salem tomorrow. Our court's going to be there, and our marshal confronting them, telling that court, "You do not have jurisdiction over the body, mind, spirit, flesh, blood, soul, man standing in front of you. You only have jurisdiction over the all-cap version of his name." And we'll see how that goes.
Right. And let me ask you, when they get up there, is it do you ask, or do you tell people or advise them to say something to the effect that I am Robert Taylor, I am a sovereign citizen, and I don't recognize this court, is there anything that you advise them to say to the court before the at a certain point when they recognize you as a defendant?
No.
Okay.
What you're supposed to do if you're a man and you have jurisdiction as such, you're not a card carrying member of the state of Oregon with allegiance to them, but you're a man and you're freeborn. There's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. That's an oxymoron. That was made up by the Supreme Court. They named all of us that are in this movement sovereign citizens. And
Right.
after I explained to people that it's an oxymoron, I admit to it. Yes, I am. Because I can expatriate back and forth and be whatever I want. That's the way it's written up. Only place in the world, the only time it has ever happened, and people want to change it. I want to get it back. That's what I want to return to. So that's the basis of the whole thing is we are sovereign and they are in a de facto system. And we have to correct that to de jure. And the only thing that has to happen is mindset. You have to comprehend that you are not what they say you are. You are who you are. Are you a man free on the soil and land without a ruler and without a subject? You say you are. Now prove it. That's where
Well, you
people
can prove
fall
it
down.
because you can go back to the Bouvier Law Dictionary, which defines that term legally. So that isn't that basically the proof right there when you show them this? That's
Not unless you
not something
declare it.
you wrote. What? Say that again. I'm sorry.
Not unless you declare it. Okay, this is what you have to do to make a fact.
Okay.
A man has to make living testimony in the form of an affidavit of truth because men and women testify. And that's how you get the truth. Okay, so a man or a woman testifying in the form of an affidavit of truth. And you say, this is what I am, and this is what I am not. And after you do that, you fill out your name, what your parents gave you, where you were born, who you are, basically. Is anybody still alive that was there when you were born? Those kind of things. And then you have to find two people that are equally as sovereign as you are to sign as witnesses to your affidavit of truth. Now you have a document. In 7, 14, and 21 days, if there's no rebuttal in common law, it will have survived 3 times without rebuttal. And in admiralty law or the de facto law out of Salem, at the end of 30 days, if those people that you notified do not rebut it, it stands as fact. So when we do something, we write it up and we notify, usually, not every time, but usually, the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Marshal Service, the Marine Corps, the state of Oregon, aka all cap state of Oregon. Frequently, we used to do the legislature, but there isn't any now. But 36 sheriffs and 38 prosecutors on Oregon. We notify them of everything we're doing. And they have ample time to rebut it. And we have had no rebuttals in 9 grand juries and 9 Article 3 Amendment 7 trials, not one rebuttal. All of them have been notified. They knew we were out on their front steps holding court right in front of them. There's no secrets. They can't stand up to us. You look them in the eye and they fold. We went into the Marion County recorder, Bill Burgess, nice guy. Charlie was leading the group that day, and there was, I think, 6 or 8 of us. And we were filing our paperwork into the Marion County record. We are the provisional government on Oregon. And he did not want to take that paper. Oh, he didn't want to take that. He called his attorney in from the 2 floors up, and we were there for 45 minutes arguing. He received the paper and took it.
He did take it. So now how long?
Yes, it's recorded.
And how long does that have to, do you have to wait before if he doesn't respond, what's going to be the next response?
Well, we're doing it right now. The sheriffs, they all had the notification, but it takes a lot of effort to take a court and a marshal to 36 sheriffs. And we've only done 9, but we've done 9. And every time you do one, you do notice to the agent is notice to the principal, and notice to the principal is notice to the agent. And we notify the Oregon Sheriff's Association of everything we do. It's up to them to notify their membership. They know we're coming. And we're not going to accept anything but a proper oath to the proper constitutions with the laws of nature and nature's God included. Simple.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. I sued the city of Bandon here because they violated their own charter. They take an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution. They uphold the state constitution and uphold the city charter. And I guarantee you, none of the counselors have read probably either of those things. And they had violated the charter. It was a clear violation. In fact, I didn't even have to go to court. The judge gave me a summary judgment. I won my legal fees. The city had to pay me $30,000, which was nice because my lawyer gave me a break on that and only charged me a much lower percentage. So I only had to pay $27,000 instead of the actual $30,000 he was charging the city. And I took that other $3,000 and I fought the city in the next campaign and won. But the funny thing is that there are a lot of people who they violated their oath to the charter, even though as you say, it's not the correct oath that they're taking, but they still violated it. And other than me suing them, if I wouldn't have sued them, they would have been able to get away with it. So how do you even enforce them, not only to uphold an oath that is the oath that they're taking that's illegal, but how do you get them to uphold an oath that you want them to take when there's no one there to punish them in the first place? It seems like there's that double standard in the laws where, unless someone spends money out of their own pocket to sue the machine can do whatever the hell it wants.
You're right. But there's 2 things that are very important. One is called the Clearfield Doctrine, and the other one is called the Accardi Doctrine. And those put a big caveat on it. They have to do the right thing. And if the right thing is written down in their rules, they have to do it. And if they don't, they are denying you due process. If somebody denies you due process and it's incontrovertible, which it is, it's usually written down. You're supposed to do 1, 2, 3, and they did 3, 4, 7. It's
right.
Incontrovertible. So there you are. So that's a breach of due process. 18 U.S.C. 3571 says, if you violate a man's due process, you owe him $250,000 if you can get a court's order. We have the court. Right
Samantha,
now, we're what?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Continue. I'm sorry. You cut off for a second. Go ahead.
Right now, we have multiple courts verdicts that 89 legislators did not follow their oath, they broke their oath. That's not due process. Due process says you don't do that. So they violated due process 89 times, $250,000 for the violation of due process for every single Oregonian that files the paperwork. That's already done. We're taking that to Shelley Hoffman, the head of risk management for Oregon. She's contacted her attorney, Steve. I can't remember Steve's last name now. But we're going to take it all the way to the mat. The law says court's order. We've got the court. They violated your rights. They violated due process. We're going to go collect $250,000 for each violation for each one of those 89 legislatures. We also have Kate Brown, Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, and Suzanne Bonamici that we're going to do the same things to. You know what a habeas corpus is?
Yep. Have to have them in court.
What?
The request to have them in court.
No, yeah, that could be. A court must write a habeas corpus, and it tells the jailer to bring forth this prisoner.
Right.
We want to see him.
Right.
Give us the body. That's what their job is. The jailer's job is to give us the body when we present you with a writ of habeas corpus ad sub justitiandum. And we did that to the Oregon Department of Corrections. We held a trial right in their parking lot in downtown Salem, out on Industrial Way. And they accepted a writ of habeas corpus and did not comply. That's a due process violation. There is no other rule after the court gives the jailer the habeas corpus. The jailer doesn't go ask Fred or Bob or see what the general has to say about it. Turn him loose. And then we did a writ of mandamus because they did not follow the writ of habeas corpus. And we served that on them. And we're going to take both of those to risk management, $250,000 for each violation, and just look them in the eye. It's incontrovertible, Rob. They don't have a leg to stand on anywhere.
Let me ask you, is this costing you money to process these legal documents? Is this do you have an attorney helping you out? I don't know. Maybe, are you an attorney perchance? I didn't even ask. What's your profession and what's going on with that?
I'm just an old man. I thought I was going to be sitting in my garden, smoking my pipe, raising standard poodle puppies. That's what I was doing. And then I wound up in this. And I made the silly decision of sitting in my office, and I am not going to accept any infringements upon my inalienable rights. I will fight everyone. Okay? I made that silly decision. There's no wiggle room in that.
Right.
I've been arrested 7 times, put in jail, released from jail, tried 3 times, got my gun back, and spent 2 years on probation and 18 months on probation and 20 days in county jail. I got to do all those things because I will not accept any infringements on my unalienable rights. And then now we have an assembly, and we're not going to accept any infringement upon any of our unalienable rights. And we'll show up with a marshal and a court, and we'll make this right. They fold. There's nothing there. It's all tissue paper and bullshit.
This was interesting that Samantha Frost, she just recently ran for county clerk of Douglas County, and she says, so if they don't have a valid oaths of offices, then they aren't breaking anything, right? I mean, and I kind of get her point. If they're not taking an oath of office that's valid, then how can they be breaking anything, because it's not an oath to anything?
That's exactly right. But the requirement is they will have a proper oath. And we were deprived, Oregon, as government, November 8th, 1910, when they flipped us from de jure to de facto. This is, I'll do it real quick. It comes about like this. The king says, I want to go fight in one of the battles for the Holy Land. And he tells his brother, I'm going to be gone, and while I'm gone, you are going to be the king. So the de jure king, the real king, leaves the kingdom, and his brother becomes the de facto king. He is the king. Then the brother that left comes back, and the brother that is the de facto king says, I don't recognize you as my brother. Kill him. Where are you?
Right.
So you come back as the de jure king, and then you have to retake from the de facto everything that was yours rightfully, lawfully, and legitimately.
Because that's what de jure
exactly
means. De jure means according to the right entitlement or to the right claim, whereas de facto means in fact, whether it be right or not. So it's not legal. It's just de facto. Am I correct on those?
Pretty close. I like one little part. Black's Law, 6th edition, page 416. The definition of de facto. De facto, it's there. It's real. You have to deal with it. There's no way around it. Comma, illegal and illegitimate, period. That's the part that everybody leaves out when they do the definition. And then a little later down on the same page, it says de jure, that which is right, lawful, and constitutional. And that's what we're going to have. These guys want to change from one de facto government to another de facto government.
Right.
Right.
I see that.
They want to say, yeah, you're right. Those folks are all wrong and we're right. And we're going to make it all better. All you got to do is go sign up 36 counties and settle 36 counties, close one eye and fart, and you'll be there. You'll have done everything necessary. No. You have to form a social compact. You have to do the work. It's all written down. It's not play pretend. Nobody from some other assembly in some other state can appoint anybody to be an interim. You need to look up the difference between interim and provisional. And we're provisional. We are actually doing the stuff. And we're doing it in groups all over the state. It takes hundreds of miles to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Oregon's spread out all over hell.
We're huge.
It's not like it's, yes. And you can drive for, there's only 1,500 people that live in Sherman County.
Right.
You know, but it has the same authority as any other county, and it has a sheriff, and we have to go deal with that sheriff. Another sheriff has 450,000.
Right. Yeah, that's the difference between like Sherman County and Multnomah County. Huge difference in population. They got more cows than they do people over in Sherman County. And the east is much less populated than anything here on the coast and in mid Oregon. But Oregon's a huge state. I mean, I've ran candidates in District 4 still when it was still the same district that Peter DeFazio was in at the time when he was serving in that office. And it is just a huge state. It's a huge state to get around. So when you do anything statewide, like we did with the Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance, it's another one of those. It's just takes a lot of time. And I actually was lucky enough to get help in each and every individual county. But this was my problem with the Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance. We were trying to pass a law that really upheld a law that wasn't being upheld in the first place. Well, it was beyond a law. It was a constitutional amendment that wasn't being held up in the first place. So why would they listen to my law if the amendment that they should be listening to, and this is what the law did, was gave a sanctuary to that amendment? Why even bother? And that was the argument we had back and forth when we were doing this. And a lot of times in politics, you do it because you want to get people's attention. It was very popular. People were getting behind it. But you see my point, as in, why are we passing a law if they're not even enforcing the amendment?
Here's another one of those things they do in law. You may have seen on documents such as this, it says the state of Oregon versus so-and-so.
Right.
Now, in law and equity, Article 3, Amendment 7, we have common law. And in common law, a man or a woman has to do it. And they have to do it to your face in open court. The state of Oregon does not have jurisdiction in common law court. The only place the state of Oregon against a man or a woman has any jurisdiction is in Article 3. You read Article 3 of the Constitution, that's the only place where a man can find remedy against the state. So that's the only court. I spent 18 months looking for an Article 3 court. They're all Article 1. The only Article 3 court is the U.S. Court of International Trade, New York, New York, and they will not claim original jurisdiction. We've been there. They say, we only do international claims in commerce. That's all they do.
Oh, wow. How useless is that?
Exactly. Then they made write this one down. Mookini, Mookini 303. Mookini 303. That's where the governance, the Washington District of Columbia, Inc., hid Article 3. They say in Mookini 303, any court whose name begins with the United States cannot be an Article 3 court. Then they renamed every single court the United States Federal District Court of wherever, or the United States Court of Appeal, or the United States Probation Court. Every court they renamed United States, so they cannot be an Article 3 court.
You know, this is what gets me, is that, okay, this is the same thing that the Marxists are doing in our country. There's this Marxist, the Marxist revolution that the leftists are imposing on us. And the one thing that they're trying to destroy more than anything else besides our culture and our values, number one, is our justice system, equal justice. They're looking for social justice, which is no justice at all. I find it ironic that the same people who are trying to undermine the Constitution from within, via going back to right after World War, or right after the Civil War, when they changed a lot in the Constitution, that one of the things that they attack first is the justice system, because the justice system is really what the Constitution is about, protecting the rights of the individual. And that's the hard part to get across to a lot of people.
They say, what's the difference?
Yeah.
My next door neighbor, known him for 20 years, I said, Pete, I want to explain to you what I'm doing. He said, okay. So we stood in his front yard and I talked for 20 minutes easy. And when I got done or got to a breathing point, he said, how long has this been going on? I said, 114 years. He said, I don't want anything to do with it, and turned around and walked away. My neighbor of 20 years.
Yeah.
He's not going to get involved. 62.5% of the entire population will not say the truth to the de facto. It's yes, sir, to the cops, and it's yes, sir, to the judge, and I'll do what you say, and yes, and here it is, and I'll pay the fine, and please let me go. 62.5% of the population.
Well, if it's so, then if we had de facto courts, then every legislature who passes a law, it's a de facto law.
Exactly. There has been no law on Oregon since 1910.
Yeah.
Here's a little one that I found out. I was in a group called Private Attorney Generals Across America for several years. And one morning, somebody had a document to read, and it was a letter from the Illinois State Bar from 1906. And the letter stated their intention to go around to all the states and flip all the states into a de facto state of state so that they could be subdivisions of the United States.
Ooh, that's
and they
bad.
they flipped Oregon November 10th. That's when they flipped us into a subdivision. When I pulled the records for the Marco Hatfield building, it said the city of Portland is a subdivision of the county of Multnomah, is a subdivision of the state of Oregon, is a subdivision of the United States. Right on the records from their attorney when they were doing the eminent domain taking.
It was funny. Yeah, it's I remember doing an interview, well, not an interview. He had come into town. It was Ashcroft. He had come to Albuquerque, and he referred to Albuquerque as the first region, New Mexico as the first region of America, not the state of New Mexico. He referred to us as a region, which, come to find out, Region 1 contains several different states. And they're trying to get away from state autonomy by creating this regional government and putting provisions on it that tie you into the other states, unlike an independent state itself.
Yes, just one of their many tricks. They're good at it. I mean, we're up against, have you ever heard of MK Ultra?
Yes, I have.
Okay. You do know about Paperclip? Operation
Yep, I was a big fan of Bill Cooper.
Okay, so then you know that since 1947, they've been doing their very best to program us. And
Yeah.
they're good.
They're
They
very
are
good.
really good.
And with the technology they have today, they are bamboozling a lot of generations. You know, a lot of people in many different generations, but the newer generations, because history has been in many cases erased for people who are 30 and under, they are able to do a lot of this manipulation and create a reality that doesn't exist for them. But I do have, David Zargazica had another question I thought was interesting. He says, why hasn't Oregon Statewide Assembly gone to the commander-in-chief of the military to initiate military intervention to remove the de facto criminals from positions of power, foreign and domestic?
Excellent question. we went to the Commandant of the Marine Corps instead. There has not been a commander-in-chief of the military since Buchanan. There has only been color of law. Grant and everyone after him, all the way to Donald John Trump, are members of a bogus color of law, play pretend, unconstitutional, illegal, illegitimate United States of Washington District of Columbia, Inc., and
Right.
what's left of their 10-mile square. That's what there is for a commander-in-chief. However, the United States Marine Corps was made in 1775. That was made before there was the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. It's a plank holder. They were there in 1777 when the Confederation Perpetual Union was formed. And they were there in 1859 when the last state of the de jure United States of America was made. So when you're looking for military power service to do the job on Oregon, it's the Marine Corps, because the Lieber Code of 1863 is the United States Army. The United States Army is part of the industrial, military, legislative, executive, judiciary. I got some more. Nazi, Khazarian, jihadist, United Nations, color of law, society that should not be.
Right.
That's what we're up against, all
Yeah.
of them, and
Yeah.
it's not hard. We did Oregon. We finished doing Oregon. All the paperwork's done. We're just looking them in the eye now. Each and every one of them has to be looked in the eye. They'll either take a proper oath or they won't. That's their choice. So the guy was really close. David was really close, but there is no commander-in-chief. There hasn't
Right.
been since 1861. It's all papered, but there is a commandant of the Marine Corps.
Right.
He is still there from 1775, from before they did the bullshit that Army is part of.
Right.
Grants, have you ever looked at the names of the counties on Oregon? Grant, Sherman, Crook, they're all
Right.
generals on the Union side.
Yep, absolutely. Samantha Frost had a really good question here. She says, what does Ron think of the attorney's office of the District of Oregon? They are an offshoot of the United States Department of Justice. They never once mentioned the Oregon as a state or is a state.
I know a lot about that. The former attorney for Oregon's name was Billy J. Williams, and he took it over years ago from a female that had the job, and she had been caught having an affair with one of her men attorneys, and they fired her, and Billy J. got the job. So we went to Billy J. and said, all right, you've got this appointment. Give us your bona fides. Prove that you are who you say you are. And they would not. We did the same thing to the agent in charge of the FBI, and we did the same thing to the U.S. Marshal for Oregon. His name was Berger, and he was a former sheriff. And we did it lawfully and legitimately, did it with paper, served it on them, and they will not provide their bona fides. They have no honor and they can't hold the position. Billy J has since been fired. And the new one's in there, Natalie White, spelled
Right.
Wight. She's now the attorney. I had an attorney named Seth Urim. He's retired, but for like 6 or 8 years, he was the only contact I had with the US DOJ. Nobody else would talk to me. They assigned it to him. The only contact I had with them was through him. They banned me from their telephone system. I can't even call the federal building. My phone number won't ring there. Yeah.
That's a badge of honor. I would just take that as a badge of honor.
Oh, I do. The day they excluded us from the building after we served them papers, it's not difficult. All you got to do is do it.
Yeah.
You got to do
Absolutely.
it for yourself, and nobody can do it for you.
So what do you think Trump's presidency is going to do? Do you think Trump understands any of this? Do you think he understands the de facto government? Do you think he's talking about fighting the deep state, which as far as I'm concerned, that's de facto. The entire deep state is de facto. There's no constitutional authority for almost every single bureaucracy that exists in the federal government. Do you think that Donald Trump does he understand this, do you think? And do you think he's going to help you in any way?
I won't speak against myself, but yes, I think he understands a great deal. The Accardi doctrine and the Clearfield doctrine say if somebody's paying you, that's who your allegiance is to. The city cop is not your cop. He's a cop for the city. Anything that he does for you is a byproduct. The same thing with Donald John Trump, except Donald John Trump did not take their dollar. That's big. That's huge. Even in their de facto presidential office, he didn't take their dollar. He didn't sell out. But this is also true about Donald John Trump. Donald John Trump said to what's that rep? Nancy
Pelosi.
It's recorded. I watched the recording. He says to Pelosi, so we take their guns and we deal about due process later. And she said, yes. And he signed the red flag.
Right.
Where the cops can come and take your gun and we'll deal with the due process later. He signed that. He broke his oath. There's no doubt about it. He broke his oath right then. Yeah. And he broke his oath several times. And it's the right wing and the left wing of the same bird. And that bird can have wings that are more right and more left, or less right and less left. That bird has a lot of wings, but it's still the same bird. It's still the same swamp. And all of those guys in the swamp have a black hat and a red hat and a brown hat and a white hat in their closet, and they wear whichever one is appropriate at the time. And it's the same with Donald John Trump. Pragmatic people will damage your unalienable rights for their own betterment. He agreed with Pelosi to give us the red flag law.
Now, was
so
that
he could get something else?
Well, before you go any further, I'm trying to think back. Was that a presidential mandate?
No.
Or was that was legislative, right?
That was legislated, and he signed it. Legislature that does not get signed by the president after 10 days becomes law. Correct? Yes, it is correct.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's written right in the Constitution.
Okay.
He cannot have a pocket veto. He can't just put it in his pocket and forget about it. In 10 days, it becomes law. So he signed it and he didn't have to. If he wanted it to become law and not sign it, it would have. He didn't have to veto it and he didn't have to sign it, but he signed it. He broke his oath. There's no way around it.
I'm trying
I
to
say
find
that
the,
to,
I was trying to find the number of that bill. I can't remember. I'm going to have to go back and look. It's been so they do so many, and it was
oh
when I
yeah.
saw it, it was, that you just can't keep up with all of them. And even Samantha Frost was asking if it was an executive order or a law. And Samantha, I'll have to find out for you. I'm not sure
It's a law.
yeah, I'll have to find out what the number of the law is. Very interesting. I had a conversation with Joe Ray Perkins about.
I like her.
Was she part of your group?
No, but she's peripheral.
Okay.
She's a friend of a friend. And when we've set up and had a big assembly in the park,
Mm-hmm.
she was there. She set up her tent with us.
Nice. Joe Ray's usually not
She's
afraid to do
also, I
something.
think that, yeah, she's the secretary or the treasurer or something for the Republican Party. I talked to her about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and she's also a big fan of one of my arch nemesis, David Brock Smith. But sometimes you got to have friends who are friends with your enemies. That's how you find out shit about your enemies, right?
I love
It's
it.
okay, Samantha.
Yes.
It's okay. But so I think you've done an excellent job of explaining this, and I think you did much better than one of my previous guests. And I probably will have others on, and I'll try to have you back because this sounds like a process that's moving forward, and I want to hear more about it as you do move forward. So hopefully we can get you back on and maybe a month or so to do a recap on this. But before I get you out of here, what would you like to tell the audience? And you got plenty of time. Don't rush anything. So whatever you would like to say, what would you tell the audience?
Meet us on Skype, Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. Under your own name, no anonymous. Meet us on Skype. We're there 24/7, and we have a meeting on Skype every Monday at 7. So that's what I do. But instead of inviting me back, would you invite Charlie White? She's our director, and she's much more articulate. She's better at this than I am.
You got it. No problem.
All right.
No problem. I thought you were an interesting character when I met you in Salem. And I wanted to have you back on. And when we were getting back and forth on the messages that I sent out, because you get my newsletter, obviously. I thought it was very interesting. So I wanted to talk to you. And I've got your website up on the screen. It's orsja.org, not .com.org. And go check them out. And you have videos there. You have the documentation there. And of course, it seems like you're keeping it up as you go along, which is great. And you can find out about the Skype as well.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, Ron. And you have a wonderful day. Okay.
You too.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. And that was Ron Vrooman. I found that to be quite interesting. Quite interesting. I think that there's a lot in history that we forget about, we don't know. And as Ron said, we stand on the shoulders of a lot of people. I don't come to activism because I just decided one day I'm going to be an activist. It was what I watched other people doing that I found interest in. And I worked on the information that they built. And so that's why it's important to have to know old people who've been around long enough to know what we did 30, 40 years ago, so that the next generation can come up and stand on our shoulders and the information that we built. One of the best things that I love is when a young person in his 30s or 40s, and you can tell I'm getting up there in age when I'm calling 40-year-olds young, but it's true. They're relatively, they're young people in their 40s, even in their early 50s. And you can find these people many times who are interested in doing something. And I see them all the time wanting to try things that we have already tried. We know they're going to fail. So that's why, it's important to find out the information that the past generations in your life have actually already done. And because that work in many times has been done by those people. And I'm just blown away by some of the things that I learned very, very often from guys that they're in their late 70s, early 80s, and they can sit there and tell you things that would just mind blowing. You're like, wow, that what you went through back in 1960, 1970, or 1980, we're going through those same things now. And I'm sure you can go back to any generation, to the 1950s, to the 1850s, to the 1750s. People face a lot of these same problems over and over again. And it's up to us, the generations that exist now, to correct any of the wrongs that have been put forth from the past. It's just our job. It's our duty. And it's something we have to do for the future generations. I've got a kid, I got a grandkid, and I hope at some point that they will learn and they will understand why I put so much effort in doing what I'm doing. So I really appreciate Ron Vrooman. I appreciate his organization, Oregon Statewide Jural Association. And you can see I've got the website right there. And, like I said, there are a couple of different groups who are trying this process. I don't criticize anyone for trying, because you don't fail by trying. You fail by not trying at all. It's the people who don't do a damn thing that are sitting at home listening to us going, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You got a de facto law and a de facto government. Yeah, those people are they're the failures. They're the ones who are failing because they haven't stepped forward. And so I don't like to criticize anyone who's trying something that I think, well, they're probably doing the wrong thing, but that's their thing. And I think that that's just the way, that life goes. I'm going to go quickly. Let's see. I go to the comments here. Athena Samagaris, I'm just butchering your name. She says, thank you both. You're very much welcome. I'm sure Ron feels the same way. She says, very interesting indeed. And it was very interesting indeed. That's one of the reasons I like being a host, and I'm not a journalist. I'm an activist, and I just pretend to be a journalist on the show. I'm very inquisitive. I've got a lot of questions. And as an activist, I can bring some of the stories that I have gone through, lived through because of my activism. And we're going to talk about that next. We've got, I don't know if you guys saw, let me see if I can get it up here on the website. I sent out a notice, it was about 10 days ago, about the North Bend City Council, and that the North Bend City Council was, let me see if I can get this up there at a stage. There it is, North Bend's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Loyalty Oath. Well, the city of North Bend, which is right here in Coos County, the city of North Bend decided, hey, you know what we need to do? No other city is doing it here. The county doesn't do it. But you know what we need to do in North Bend? We need to create a DEI resolution, which they did in 2020, and then build on that DEI resolution by making all the businesses in North Bend, or actually all the businesses that do business with North Bend, force them to sign an affidavit, which is an oath. You're swearing to this is a legal swearing in when you swear to an affidavit. This is your word, not de facto de jure. An affidavit. This is what you are swearing to. And they wanted the businesses of North Bend to swear that they would not discriminate unlawfully against anyone. And I thought it was absolutely ridiculous because what they were really pushing were diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is nothing but the cornerstone of critical race theory. What is critical race theory? Well, it's a process of dividing people into different groups. And then after they divide the people into different groups, they assign certain groups as the oppressor, and they assign another person or portion of the groups as the oppressed. It's just like the communists when they had the workers against the bourgeoisie. Yes, the bourgeoisie, that would be me, because I own a home and we own a business. We would be part of the bourgeoisie, and part of the workers. What were the workers called? The workers, there was a name for it, the proletariat. Yes, so it was the proletariat against the bourgeoisie under communism during Russia in the early 1900s, where that started the division in society. Well, there's trying that division here, and because America is such a great place and capitalism is the great equalizer, we are able to live a life where there is no real bourgeoisie or proletariat, because everyone's doing good when the country does good, and there's opportunity for everyone. So they can't come in and divide us between the worker and the business owner. They just can't do it. So the reason they're dividing us, or the way they're dividing us, is by the color of our skin, our sexual orientation, or our religion. And then they declare that one group is oppressed and the other group is oppressor. And of course, the oppressed has to rise up against the oppressor. And that's the bullshit that they're pushing on us today. It's called diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so when I saw this oath, being this loyalty oath, being pushed by City of North Bend, I called out the troops. And of course, Chris Castleman, he was already on it. That guy is something. I mean, he was right on it. And we had talked about it. We agreed that we have to go there. We have to fight this. And we did. We went to the work session last Tuesday. This was last Tuesday, the day right after my last show. And I'll tell you what, I'm very proud of the people of Coos County. We had a huge turnout, and quite a few people from North Bend showed up. It was a pretty big turnout. We filled the room. And we were able to convince the counselors and the mayor wasn't there. The counselors, we were able to convince them to table this for another work session and redo it or get rid of it. So there's still, we haven't won completely, but we have made sure that they understand that what they had as far as a loyalty oath, the DEI loyalty oath that they were passing around, the affidavit that they want businesses to sign, we made sure that, it's going to be put on the kibosh. And if it does come back, it's going to be much different, just one or two sentences. And the reason they're going to do it, and I love the counselor, Jenny, gosh, I can't think of her name. Jenny, I can't think of her last name. She was all the way on the left. I've only met her briefly at certain different occasions, and I really like Jenny. I don't know anything about her politics, but I really like Jenny. But she was honest, and I loved it. She says, yes, this is a cover your ass measure. This is really nothing but the city trying to cover its ass because the city gets grants from all kinds of different places, not only just from the state government and the federal government, but they get grants from private entities. And a lot of those private entities, if they give you money, they want to push DEI, once again, because they're part of this Marxist cultural revolution that's occurring right now in the country. And thank goodness it's going to be squelched here. It never goes away completely. It's like herpes, you get that damn herpes, you get the itch, and then, they give you some medicine for it and it goes away, and you keep taking that medicine and it stays away, but it never goes away for good. Sometimes it appears, it comes back. It's herpes. That's what it does. And so I guess what I'm saying is government is herpes. Yes, that's literally what I'm saying. Government is herpes, and bad policy is the worst of the herpes when it comes out from government. So we fought this. We were pretty successful, and I think it's going to be put on the kibosh. But I'll let you know when they're having their next work session to discuss this diversity, equity, and inclusion loyalty oath. I'll let you know what's going on with that, and I'll have to go back and check out to make sure they haven't already scheduled the meeting, because if they have, I may already be speaking on something that's already been settled. So we'll find out. We'll find out more about this and if that's actually happening. So I just want to thank all of you for, tuning in for that, because that's the great thing about this show. We cover things that happen locally. We just talked about a statewide jural assembly. And all of this is important because this is going to happen in all the other states. What happens here in Oregon, because we are like a little commie petri dish. That's right. We're a communist petri dish. And the experiments they're trying here, well, they're going to try them in Kansas. They're going to try them in Tennessee. They're going to try them in Texas. All of this is spreading. So this is why I like to cover local issues. One, because I think being an activist here, you get more bang out of your buck by being a bigger fish in a smaller pond. And that way I can get more fish to rally around these types of issues. Other than trying to take on something that's a national issue. And there's a lot of national issues that need attention, but I'm just one guy here in the state of Oregon. And that's why I try to focus on state issues and local issues. But it's very important to the country as a whole, because like I said, what happens here in Oregon, it's coming your way. So that's just something that I thought was absolutely important. Another thing that's happening this Thursday that's going to be coming up is that we have a local Republican Party. And every 2 years, the local Republican Party has a reorganizing meeting where they have to vote for officers. And most of the time, the way it has been in the Republican Party is that the officers who were the officers in the last term just rerun for the offices in the new term, but they're not going to do that. Thank goodness, because the leadership of the Coos County Republican Party leaves a lot to be desired. And that would be the chair, Ron Schilling. I don't know where the hell they were in this last election. I don't remember any Republican events promoting any of the candidates. And the number one candidate that the Republican Central Committee should have been behind was Bob Maine. And I can understand why years ago they wouldn't want to support Bob Maine, because at the time, Bob Maine really didn't have anyone who was a good challenger. And there was really no risk of him losing his seat. Of course, this last go around, he had Drew Farmer, which I knew at the time he was a significant opponent to Bob Maine. And part of the reason is because he was a pretty popular city councilor in Coos Bay, and he had the support, the total 100% support of the Coos County Democrat Party. So you would think that the Republicans would have backed Bob Maine, and I think they did on a small level, but they should have been doing this on a huge level. They should have been out there having events for Bob. They should have been out there. We did Trump trains. We did several Trump trains of the Republicans. No. And when we did our Trump trains, we made sure Bob was there so that people saw him out there supporting the very popular presidential candidate, Donald Trump, who, yes, he lost in Oregon, but he won the country. And so it was very disappointing that our own political party, the Republican Party, was just basically AWOL. Or MIA. Actually, MIA is a much better term, missing in action. And it's all due to the fact that they have a lame chair, Rod Schilling. Rod Schilling is more worried about controlling dissent in his own party. He's more worried about controlling people like me, as if you could control me. That in itself proves how delusional Rod Schilling is. You cannot control people like me. We are people who have our own thoughts, who take our own action, and we're going to do what we do because we believe it's the right thing to do. And Rod Schilling, instead of, letting people be, he didn't like the fact that so many of us was criticizing certain Republican incumbents, such as David Brock Smith, such as Court Boyce, such as Dick Anderson. All three of them lame candidates, and now all three of them, Smith and Anderson, have won back their Senate seat, and Court Boyce has won back as their representatives. And believe me, I'm not happy with any of these guys, and I'm going to criticize them. I'm going to continue to criticize them when they do things wrong. And in fact, if they do things right, I might say they did this right. However, I think we can do better as far as candidates, and we should try to do better. But that's not what the the chair of the Republican Party seemed to want. He was more worried about people like me talking about the party and him in his position as chair, and people like the candidates, David Brock Smith, Dick Anderson, Court Boyce, even Boomer Wright. I mean, they all suck. It's not my fault they suck. It's their fault that they suck. And a lot of people agree with me. In fact, if you look at the amount of votes that David Brock Smith received in the election, I think he only got like 13,000 out of 31,000 people. That's a huge amount of people who didn't even bother voting for David Brock Smith. Why? Because he's a dirtbag. In fact, it's in his name, Dirtbag Senator, DBS. And so we're going to be trying to see what's going to happen with the Republican Party. So I'm going to be going there. Let me see if I can. Wow, I should have put this up. Let me see. Let me go back here on my webpage and see if I can get this up for you, because I think this is very extremely important here. Okay, I'll add this back to the stage. There you go. Coos County Republican Party reorganizing meeting. And that's right now. You can see that on my website. And let me scroll down here. The CCRCC, this is the Coos County Republican Central Committee. The Central Committee is the larger body of the organization. And then you got the Executive Committee, which is on the Central Committee. And the Executive Committee are made up of several different offices. Like I said, the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, the secretary, the delegate, the 3 alternate delegates. And if you don't know what a delegate is the one that goes back to the state parties. When the state party, the state Republican Party, is having meetings and they get a vote as a delegate representing the county itself. So we are having a meeting, and I shouldn't say we, the Coos County Republican Central Committee is having a meeting 6 p.m. Thursday, November 21st, 2024. And this is happening at the Hauser Community Church in the family room. That is at 69411 Wildwood Road in North Bend, Oregon. And I'm encouraging all of you. I am asking you as nicely as I can, please go to the Republican Central Committee meeting. I mean, if you're not a precinct person, what is a precinct person? There's someone who gets elected to head the precinct of the party. It happens every couple of years. It's usually during the primary. It just happened last May 21st. If you weren't on the ballot or write-in and the May 21st primary and you didn't get elected as a PCP, and you're not currently a PCP because you weren't elected in that election, then you won't have a vote and you can't run for office. But anyone who is a precinct committee person can run for office. And from what I understand, they've got a treasurer, there's a lady who's going to be running for the office of treasurer. I believe it's one of Goldwater's relative. Golder. Lee Golder. Do you remember Lee Golder? It's one of his relatives. It's I'm not sure if it's his wife, his daughter, but there's someone who's running who's related to Lee Golder. He owns the Napa Auto Parts stores. You know, all the Napa Auto Parts store. Anyone who works for a garage, you know who Napa is. Great group, great business. I've always gotten along with Lee Golder. So I don't have a problem because this Golder has never served on the committee as far as the executive board. So I have no problem with her running. But what I hear, and this is really distressing news, is that they're going to, the gentleman who's the vice chair, and I use the word gentleman very loosely here, but the guy who is vice chair is going to run for chair, from what I understand. This is just all hearsay and rumor, but this is why it's important we show up to these meetings. His name is Michael Brainerd. He was related to the other Brainerd, who was the, I forget what he was, the title he was for the homeless committee that the county and the 2 cities had. It was the county, North Bend and Coos Bay. They got a grant to create a homelessness committee. They created the committee and they put one of the Brainards in charge as a director. Well, he got paid his money and he left because he could see it wasn't going anywhere and he couldn't do anything, much like his cousin, Michael Brainerd, who's been the vice chair for the local Republican Party for a long time. And as far as I can see, the guy does absolutely nothing. He is not inspiring. He's not someone that it goes out and is an activist who takes on issues, who's someone I've seen him take charge of an issue and actually fight it to its natural conclusion. No, people like me do that. And by the way, I want no part of the Republican Party other than possibly being a precinct committee person at some point in time. So I would have a vote on the board, but I have no interest in being a member of the executive board, and I cannot anyway because I'm not a PCP. That's okay. I'm still going to go to the meeting this Thursday because I'm going to make sure that everything is on the up and up. It's not that I don't trust them; it's that I don't trust them. And if they hadn't lied to me, if they hadn't attacked me, and I'm talking about the chair and the vice chair, Michael Brainerd and Rod Schilling, if they hadn't gone after me and my private business and the private business of others, I would have no problem with them. But that's what they did. They went well beyond what their duties are as a chair and vice chair of the Republican Party, and they decided to become the attack dogs for David Brock Smith and go after anyone who criticized David Brock Smith for taking all that money from the Democrat millionaire, the token, the Tuttle tokens from Thomas Tuttle, who's the guy in Gold Beach. He was the one who was allegedly committing voter fraud. He was registered in California and San Francisco, California of all places. And he was also registered in Gold Beach, and he had been voting all the way going back to 2012. And it was just horrendous what was going on. So, once again, they just decided to become attack dogs instead of fulfilling their positions as chair and vice chair. So I want anyone else other than Michael Brainerd as the chair of the Republican Party, because if he becomes the chair, then we are no better off than we were than when Rod Schilling was there. I mean, they may have a better treasurer position if Golder is elected, but they're not going to have any better position or any better leadership qualities going on in the party itself if they put Michael Brainerd in charge. Samantha Frost, she says something here. She says, look into the bylaws of the party. Ours reflect that you do not have to be a PCP to run here in Douglas County. Yeah, that may be absolutely true. Different counties have different rules, and I'm not sure if that's true. I should go look through the bylaws. I haven't gone through the bylaws for the local Republican Party in quite a while because, well, they don't pertain to me. I'm not on the central committee, and I'm not on the executive board. And I would like to think that people who are on the committee are making sure that their leaders are living up to not only the charter for the local party, but for the state charter as well. But here I'll let's see. I'll go back here. Let's scroll up a little bit. The biannual CCR-CC reorganization meeting. That's the Coos County Republican Central Committee. The Coos County Republican Committee, it shows you there that this is happening in the Hauser Community Church in the family room. Like I said, this Thursday at 6:00. I hope you're there. It says we will be electing new board members for 2025-2026. Positions to be voted on will include CCC-RCC, chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, delegate, and 3 alternative delegates. Electors will consist of those precinct committee members that were elected on June 25th of 2024. Nominations will be made and seconded from the floor of each position. Election of the chair will be the first priority, and the newly elected chair will preside over the remainder of the meeting. So actually there, I may be wrong. It says June 25th. There may have been a precinct committee people who were appointed to the committee that were not in the election. I don't know if that's true or not. From what I understood, it was supposed to be anyone who was elected in the primary. So there may be a few more precinct committee members who I don't know about. Right now, as far as I can tell, there's only 24. But we'll see. We'll see. As it continues now, it says all counties in Oregon elect their central committees biannually on even numbered years after the November general election. That's why they're having it right now. It says here, I, as in Rod Schilling, have served as chair since November of 2016 and will be stepping down from that position. Thank goodness. Good riddance. Goodbye, Schilling. The shill is leaving the room. Thank goodness. It will smell better even, I'm sure. But I have also been advised, when I say I, Rod Schilling, that the folks currently in the positions of the vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and delegate will not be seeking re-election. So from what I understand is that Michael Brainerd is not going to run for re-election as vice chair. He's actually going to run for chair. That's just hearsay that I heard from other people. We need someone else. We need new leadership, and we need new leadership now in the Republican Party. At the bottom of this letter, it says, this is a private meeting of the CCRCC. Audio and video recordings are expressly prohibited. Disruptive behavior and conversation, other than those having the floor, can result in expulsion from this meeting at the discretion of the meeting chair. So, there it is, Rod Schilling, putting his full fascist face right on the party itself. That's right, the Rod Schilling fascist face right there. You can't record, no audio or video recordings. And that's not the way it used to be when committee they have become a very closed off party. They're not doing what they should do. And I'd like to see new leadership. And I'll tell you why. We need a functioning Republican Party here. Why? I'll tell you why. We just had a Democrat who pretends to be a non-affiliated voter, Drew Farmer, just win the commission. We had about 60% of the voters vote for Donald J. Trump. Right. Donald J. Trump for president here in Coos County. But yet we just voted to put into office one of the most liberal counselors in the entire county. Why did that happen? And I'll tell you why. Because we have absolutely no functioning Republican Party here in the county. We need a functioning party. We need a functioning party if you want to get Republican candidates into office. We have to have this. And if the chair doesn't do this, the vice chair doesn't do this, then we might as well not even have a Republican Party. And where were they for this last election? Well, they were missing in action. So I hope you show up for that. Let me show you this again just to make sure you saw the date, because I think this is very important. Once again, this is the Hauser Community Church Family Room, 69411 Wildwood Road, North Bend, Oregon, 97459. Now, I know it says that it's a private meeting for the Coos County Republican Central Committee, but we've always allowed anyone who's a registered, actually, we allowed anyone who wanted to attend the meetings When I was on the Central Committee years ago, I was on the executive board at one time. And so I just don't understand why the Republican Party has become, well, the party of fascism here in Coos County. So hopefully we can rectify that. Please come out to the meeting. If you do happen to be a precinct committee person, I'm asking you not to vote for Michael Brainerd or for anyone who was on the executive board during the last 2 years. Whoever was on the executive board for the last 2 years, they all need to go. Daria was great. I'm not saying that about Daria, but she doesn't want to do it anymore. But anyone else who was on the executive board, they need to go. Daria was great. Really appreciate having her there at the Republican Party to keep an eye on those people, because there's some shady people on the Republican Central Committee, and on the executive board, starting with the chair and the vice chair, Brainerd and Schilling. They both got to go. And this is the only chance for the next 2 years that we're going to get to change out that board. And if not, we're going to have to wait until 2026. But if, like I said, if you see the same people getting elected in this party, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's going to be the same go nowhere party as it was when Schilling was the chair. He's still the chair, but he's getting ready to lose that position here soon. And like I said, good riddance. And I hope you all show up because, well, it's time for a change. And the only way we're going to get it is if we actually participate. That's, hence the term activist. I'm an activist. You know how that goes. Let's see. Someone asked, I went to the dentist once, and I've been to the dentist several times, but I went to him once, and the dentist was there. He recommended Tylenol for me to take. When I asked him what should I take for pain, he said, take some Tylenol. And I asked him, why is it all you doctors always give certain brands such as Tylenol? And he says, that's because they give us Tylenol for free as long as we promote it. So when they say 4 out of 5 dentists, they prefer Tylenol over any other painkiller, it's because 4 out of 5 dentists actually receive free Tylenol from the pharmaceutical company that makes the Tylenol brand. And that's true for anything in life. Whoever's paying you is the person who you're going to obey. That's just how life is. And I saw this meme, and I thought it was just freaking hilarious. It says the vast majority of scientists agree with whoever is funding them. And that is absolutely true. If you want to find out whether something is legit or not, find out who's funding them. It's just like politicians. If you want to find out if politicians are good or not, well, find out who's funding them. It's like me finding out that a millionaire Democrat from San Francisco was funding a senator here in my district. And, they may get a little bit mad, but you got to point this stuff out. So I thought this was damn hilarious when I saw that meme. I have some really sad news. My last show, I talked about a missing person. And it wasn't just a missing person. It was a young boy. His name was Joshua James McCoy. I'm sure all of you now know that his body was found. I'm not going to comment on what he died of and who's responsible, because I believe that if there's someone responsible for this young man's death, they should pay to the fullest extent of the law. However, everyone has a right to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. And I will fight for that right for every single citizen, no matter how much of a dirtbag that citizen might happen to be. So I'm not going to make any judgment about this boy's mother. I've watched the comments on social media. I've seen the comments. And I just can't believe that people just don't understand that, you can have those assumptions. You can make all the assumptions you want. But the fact is that we don't know. And we can't really say until the evidence has been brought out. And the only way it's going to be brought out is if there's even a trial. I don't even know if this woman, the mother of this boy, has even been charged. I have no idea. We'll find out as time goes on. I'm not going to make any comments on it, but we found out about this while we were at the North Bend meeting. It popped up on the phone, and I mean, we were all just almost teary-eyed sitting there at the North Bend meeting, finding out that this young man actually had died. I already knew he was probably dead, because anyone who is exposed to the elements more than 24 hours, especially someone who's as young and vulnerable as this young man here was, they're just not going to survive out there. And it's a sad story. And it was very distressing to hear that last Tuesday night. So, but I'm not going to cast any dispersions on anyone. Kids get lost. I gave an example of my kid getting lost last week. I talked about how he got lost off the jumping house at a big rally where I was at. And it's scary as hell. For the 15, 20 minutes you're looking for him, it's just sheer panic. And, it was funny. I mean, I talked to several other people out there, parents, and they were telling me stories about losing their kids. They were, one was at the fair and completely lost her kid. And, I remember getting lost as a child. I remember we were at we were in the mall, I was probably about 4 or 5 at the time, and we were walking. We were in a certain section of the department store, and we were walking by the elevator. The elevator doors opened up, and I wandered onto the elevator, and the doors closed. I turned around and freaked, man. I started pounding on the door. I was yelling, screaming, and crying. And luckily, when the doors opened and I ran out, yelling and screaming, "Where's my mom? Where's my mom?" And I remember the lady there. She was a clerk for J.C. Penney's, and she grabbed me, "Hold on," and eventually, they reunited me with my mother, which I'm not sure if my mother's happy about that. Yeah, I think she was, she was probably a little upset they found me that day. Yeah, I'd imagine so. But it's okay, Mom. We got over it, right? So, but seriously, it's, watching kids, it's not the easiest job. And there are times when you're going to lose track of them. It just happens. And in fact, there was a lady recently, I was going to put the video up. I couldn't find it. But there was a video of a lady who allowed her 10-year-old son to walk a mile to the store. He did it all the time. She lived in a rural part of I can't even remember which state she was in, but it's a rural part of the state. There's very little crime. And she allowed her 10-year-old to walk by himself a mile away to the general store, and he came right back, and he had done it several times. Well, someone had called the police on her, and the police actually showed up to her house and arrested her for some type of child abuse, probably neglect. But I don't know, man. I just tell you, it's, we got to allow children to grow, and we got to allow them, I don't think a 5-year-old should be allowed to walk to a store a mile away, but a 10-year-old, I don't know if you all saw what most kids were doing in 77 at 10 years old. You'd be blown away. When I was 12, I was going to rock concerts, man. And the things we were doing back then was just wild. We were free range kids back then. And now parents are such helicopter parents because they're just hovering over their kids. You might think that's a great thing because you're protecting your kids, but you got to let your kids grow. You got to let your kids experience life. And sometimes that's risk, that's danger. And those dangers, well, it's important to face those things. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with a mother letting her 10-year-old child walk a mile to the store in a rural community. I really don't see that. In fact, I used to get ticked off because in Bandon, and I'm sure this is true in a lot of cities, there's a lot of kids in my neighborhood who ride the school bus. And I used to think, why do you ride the school bus? It only takes me 10 minutes, maybe not even 10 minutes to get to the elementary school, the mid school, or the high school. All three of them I can get to from my house with a 10-minute walk. And I'm not sure why we keep busing these kids. And then we sit there and we bitch because there's an epidemic of obesity. Well, maybe it's because we don't allow our kids to exercise. We're too busy protecting them and protecting them from real and unreal dangers. I think actually contributes to the kids not growing up to be healthy. So I don't know. Maybe, I wouldn't recommend parents treat their kids the way we were treated back in the 70s, just that free range kid, let them do whatever the hell they want. But I also don't like that helicopter parenting where you just hover over your kid nonstop. You got to let your kid make mistakes. It's just life, and that's the way it goes. So my heart goes out to that mother. No matter what, she's suffering. The family is suffering, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking that happened. We will be doing another show on Monday. And yes, I promise, I know I promised last week, but I promise this time, I promise we will be doing a Friday night rant. And I'm looking at a couple of people to get on there. I feel like doing a huge rant. I got a lot of ranting to do. I mean, we got Trump is just kicking butt out there. I don't know if you watch the news and Trump and him picking his new cabinet. His cabinet is just absolutely freaking exceptional. And he's doing much better this time around than he did the first time around. The first time around, I didn't even vote for Trump in 2016. That's how unsure I was about the man. And the first one of his first appointments was Jeff Sessions to the Attorney General. I mean, damn, dude, Jeff Sessions? Jeez, man. Gee, you might as well you might as well put Pelosi in that position. Jeff Sessions was a dirtbag. He was a loser, and he proved to be a loser. And that's why, when I first started seeing the cabinet pick this time around, it was so much better. I was cheering the TV. I mean, his cabinet is absolutely exceptional. And the fact that they got Robert Kennedy Jr. in there, just incredible. Who's the lady who used to be a Democrat? Now she's, gosh, I can't think of her name. Just exceptional people. Seth Haga. They've got a lot of really good people who are lining up for these positions. And the only one that kind of questions is, well, here, let me see if I can find the whole entire list here for you. That would be better. That would be better if I could just find the entire list here for you and put that up on screen, because it sounds like I don't know the names of these people and I want to get them right here. Let me see if I can get them. Yep, Trump's picks so far. And let me see if I can share that screen. Well, I'm sharing a screen. There we go. Okay, now we got Trump's picks so far. And this has been something that's just been absolutely wonderful. I think this has been just incredible what Trump has done. His chief of staff, Susie Wiles, excellent choice there. Attorney General Matt Gaetz. I know he's controversial, but I think Matt Gaetz is an excellent choice for attorney. Anything's better than Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions, really? As soon as he appointed when Trump appointed Jeff Sessions in his first term, I was telling everybody, see, he's just another rhino. He's not going to be any different. Luckily, he was, and I was proven wrong on that fact. But and I did vote for him in 2020, and I voted for him in 2024, and I was happily delighted because Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, he is the one I'm a little worried about. Marco Rubio, yeah, you know what I mean? There's a few things he's waffled on throughout his career, but a hell of a lot better than his last choices. Here, Tulsi Gabbard for the Director of National Intelligence. This is just great. This just shows how much Donald Trump has evolved as far as a politician. He finally understood that if you want to take out the deep state, you got to get people who've been fighting against the deep state for a long time. And Tulsi Gabbard, even though she wasn't a Republican, she used to be a very leftist Democrat. She is perfect for the Director of National Intelligence. She is absolutely incredible. I think this is one of the best picks of all of these picks, to be quite honest with you. And I'm sure we can argue about that, but that's one of my favorite. For the Ambassador of the United States, Elsie Stefanik, another good pick. For the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Yeah, it's funny. When the Secretary of Health and Human Services was telling us that we need 20 jabs and that we need to wear 3 masks to be protected, all the leftists were saying, "Oh, it's all about our health. It's all about our health. You got to wear those masks. You got to take those jabs." And now you got Robert F. Kennedy in there who wants to make us our food healthy again. And the Democrats are going, "Oh, well, we can't have that loon in there. What do you mean make our food healthy again?" Yeah, it's the contradiction of the leftists. It's just amazing. I guess, it's complete sanity where they can't have any congruent thought about one person to another person. It's just, it's sad how the left thinks. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, people are going, "Oh, that guy, he's just a Fox News host. That's all he is." No, this Pete Hegseth, he went to one of those Ivy League colleges. He graduated very high in his class, and it just cracks me up that these people are making a big deal about it. But I just love it. I think it's a great thing, and I'm glad that they're choosing. That Trump is choosing this. Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, another excellent excellent choice. Let's see, Director of Central Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, great. As CIA Director, Ratcliffe previously was a House member from Texas before serving as a Director of National Intelligence at the end of the Trump's first presidency. So he's coming back for a return. Secretary of Homeland Security, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. I mean, incredible stuff. Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum. Secretary of Department of Veterans Affairs Doug Collins. Secretary of the Department of Energy Chris Wright. I mean, here's another one of my favorite, border czar Tom Homan. Tom Homan is going to take names and kick ass. I mean, and people are asking, well, the Trump is threatening to use the military to kick out all these illegal aliens. Well, you know what? They did invade the country illegally. And if you have an invading army, then what else are you going to use but your own military to fight off this invading army? So I just, that just makes me laugh when people say that. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a wonderful thing. National Security Advisor, Florida Rep. Mike Waltz, U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. We can just go on and on. I mean, he just did incredible with all of the choices that he made, and I'm very proud of the president. I'm really believing that he's going to do a lot more than we thought he was going to do. And like I was talking with my guest on today's show, in his first term, yeah, he did a lot of screwed up things, and that red flag law, very screwed up policies that he supported. There should be no red flag law. The bump stocks, he did do the mandate on the bump stocks, and that was overturned by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has been excellent. I guess we can't begrudge Trump too much for the bump stock thing, because he appointed the judges who kicked that out of court. And he's been appointing a lot of judges all across the country. And as I was talking to my first guest, that's what they have to attack to take out this country from within. We have to attack the justice system. That's why the Marxist commies that are performing this cultural revolution in this country, they're attacking our justice system. That's our weakest point, is if they can get rid of the justice system, we have no justice whatsoever. And of course, they're looking for social justice, which is no justice at all. We want equal justice, where everyone's treated equally under the law. So, I think that's going to be wonderful. But join me next Monday. I'm going to try to get Kevin Starrett on the show. We got to do an update. He's been so busy in the courts. I haven't been able to get him on the day show, and I don't want to torture him with another Friday night rant. We get a little outlandish on the Friday night rant, and Kevin, I know, like, he's a very somber person, and he's very straightforward. So I want to have a more professional conversation with him. So we'll talk to him on Monday. We'll try to get him on Monday. I don't know who I'm going to have on Friday, but I hope you all join us. Before I get out of here, I do have some sponsors. I got to pay bills too. It's just a wonderful condition of capitalism, because paying people is a good thing, especially when they provide the services that you want. And one of the businesses that I highly recommend, if you want to get rid of some of those trouble trees in your yard, you got some trees, they're a liability, they're bug infested. They're disease infested. There's branches that look like they're going to fall off on your neighbor's house. You don't want to be responsible for that. Give a call to 3H Tree Service. You can call them up at 541-294-1800. Ask for Matt Holman, the Holman gang. They can help you out. And if you do business with them, you're doing business with a group of people who have served this country. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. I believe most of the Holman people have served this country. Dennis Holman was in, I forget which branch of the military he served in, but I do know he was in Vietnam. And I do know that Matt Holman also served, and I believe he was in Afghanistan. I believe it was Afghanistan. I hope I'm correct on that. But if you do business with 3H Tree Service, you're doing business with people who've been in the military. And And whether they were in the military or not, I can tell you right now, these guys do an incredible job of taking out those trees with surgical precision. You got those trees that are over a house, a garage, and all these other things. Well, you just can't lop one of those things down and let it fall willy-nilly wherever you want. No, they got to go in there, and they know how to remove those trees so that they're not such a liability. And I'll tell you what, I've talked to a lot of people who have used 3H Tree Service, and I haven't talked to anyone who didn't like the service. Their service has been incredible. Tim was supposed to be on the show. He was going to give me a few minutes of a rant, and I don't know what happened to him. He was probably busy. I got to speak to him last week. I talked to Tim for a while, and he was kind of disappointed because he hasn't been able to get on the air because he's been really busy. But that's because he's good. That's, you don't want to go to a business that isn't busy, because if they're not busy, you got to ask the question, well, why don't you have any customers? It's like restaurants. If restaurants, if the parking lot is never ever full, especially at lunchtime and dinner time for any restaurant, I usually don't go there, because I figure, well, if no one's going to be there at lunch, then their food must really suck. Well, that's the same with businesses. Tom and Gigs, if you go over to Tom and Gigs, he is always busy. Usually he's got a ring of trucks around his business over there, 135 South Shoneman Street. This is in the Empire neighborhood, right behind the car wash. You all know where the car wash is in the Empire neighborhood, but he's right behind that. And usually there's a ring of trucks around his business who are waiting for his service, because the guy's crew is excellent. So go talk to Tim at Tom and Gigs for all of your automotive needs. You can reach them at 541-888-4660. Once again, that's 541-888-4660, and he's at 135 South Shoneman in the Empire neighborhood. Herbal choices. I get a lot of crap from people who go, oh, you're supposed to be a conservative. Well, I have conservative values, but I'm also an objectivist. And as an objectivist, I look at people who use marijuana or cannabis, and I really don't see people who are actual criminals. I don't believe just because by the sheer fact you use cannabis, I think it's better than alcohol. I've never seen anyone beat up their wife and neglect their children because they smoked marijuana. I've only seen that for people who use alcohol. And so I think this is a much better alternative for certain people who, well, when they drink alcohol, they become real assholes. And that's why my choice is, my cannabis choice is Herbal Choices, the best dispensary in the county, hands down. They've got 5 stores. They got one store that's south of Bandon, beautiful store, well-lit parking lots, very friendly attendants, bud tenders that you can go talk to and ask questions if you're not sure about it. And they can help you out. They also have a store they have 4 stores on Highway 101, the one in Bandon, south of Bandon, the one in Coos Bay, the one in North Bend, and of course they have one in Reedsport. They also have a store in Charleston, really great store out there. I highly recommend for all your herbal needs, Herbal Choices is the place to go. And of course, Oregon Firearms Federation. Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no compromise gun group in Oregon. The rest of them, most of them, well, they suck. And so if you really want to dedicate your money to a organization that's actually going to fight for your Second Amendment rights, you need to turn that money over to Oregon Firearms Federation. They could use the donations. They're in court in several different cases right now defending the people of Oregon from the Oregon legislature, the Oregon Attorney General, who wants to take away your Second Amendment rights. And they want to do this. And you can find out more at Oregon Firearms Federation. I've been with the group for a long time. I've known Kevin for a damn long time. And, of all the people in politics, if I'm not sure about anything, if I'm questioning my own decision on something, I always call Kevin Starrett, because, boy, no matter what the issue is, he's a good barometer on what the best answer is for your situation. And Kevin Starrett has been at this for a long time. I think he's the most knowledgeable person on the Oregon legislature. He sits there and he can tell you stories that most people don't even know because they haven't lived it. Kevin has lived it. And so if you want to give money to a good group, Oregon Firearms Federation should deserve that qualification of being one of the best damn gun groups in Oregon. The best. They're not my sponsors, but I do like to recommend Band and Gun Club for anyone who wants to become a member, hone in your pistol skills, your shotgun skills. They got a 5-stand trap shoot. It's really great stuff. I really enjoy it when I go out there. I haven't been out there in a while. I need to get out there. Well, there's been an election going on. What can I tell you? There's just been a crazy election going on. But you can find out more at bandandgunclub.org, bandandgunclub.org. Once again, they're not my sponsors. I just happen to like the group, and I just like giving people the opportunity to become better skilled at handling their firearms. That's very important. And they don't have a rifle range at the Band and Gun Club, but they do at Tioga Sports Park, which is right next to the dump, the county dump on Highway 101. And Tioga Sports Park, they have a 100-yard rifle range where you can sight in your telescope. Really great place to go, but you got to go when they have volunteers volunteering, and they probably haven't been open in a while because the weather, well, it's rainy season. And they're not going to be open when it's rainy out there. But if you want to find out more, go to TiogaSportsPark.org. Once again, that's TiogaSportsPark.org. And those are my sponsors. The last two weren't my sponsors. They're just people you need to know about. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. It's been a blast, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I've got a lot of other issues that we're going to be dealing with going down the line. And like I said, because I'm an activist, I guarantee you at some point in time, there's going to be a local issue that may be a local issue, but it's going to affect everyone in the same way down the road, because your city or county is going to try the same types of policies that are being implemented here in Oregon. It's just a matter of time before the leftists get a hold of that. And what can I tell you? Politics is government. Like I said, government. It's herpes. Spreads and spreads. It's a contagion that goes from one person to another. You don't want that government herpes. No. I don't even think they got a cure for government herpes. Yeah, it just keeps spreading and spreading. I don't know what to tell you, but it's been a really fun show. And until the next time I see you, folks, carry on, Coos County. Carry on.